Good morning. Good morning. I'm not going to take too much of your time. We had an epic evening yesterday, and we all agree to that, right? We all agree that Botswana put together a wonderful evening where we enjoyed the cuisines. I like siswa, and I've been looking for that since I arrived. And it was quite a delight yesterday when we got to enjoy that. I was tasked to talk about SMMEs, multiplying the value of SMMEs, ensuring that SMMEs contribute in a robust way within the economies of Africa. By way of introduction, I'm from South Africa. I am employed to help out at the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, and I do interact with SMMEs. But one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind is that a lot of times we talk about SMMEs without SMMEs. We talk to SMMEs without the involvement of SMMEs, which is something that we need to change as we progress. So I put together a few notes and a few things that I just want to talk about. So when we start to talk about multiplying the value of SMMEs, there are a few things that comes in mind. Is that how many SMMEs are there in a particular country? Or how many SMMEs are there in Botswana, in Nigeria, and many other countries within the value chain of tourism? What I since realized is that SMMEs are the industry. So we usually talk about SMMEs as the other side of the tourism sector, not as the sector. But if you look at the percentage of big business and small businesses within the sector, you find out that the small businesses, outnumbers the big businesses in terms of the number of people that are working within, the SMMEs. So the number one thing that we need to keep in mind is that SMMEs are the industry. They are not an anomaly. They are not a side business. They are not, supposed to be treated the way, we have been treating SMMEs, in the past. So that's number one. If you want to talk about multiplying the value of SMMEs, we need to keep in mind is that SMMEs are the ones that are running the industry. The recognition thereof of SMMEs needs to be done, in a way that, needs to be a little bit more robust than what we do now. When we're discussing here for the past 2 days, I have been listening very attentively in terms of the intra-Africa travel. And we talked a lot about connectivity. But we talked a lot about air connectivity. We never mentioned anything about rail connectivity, road connectivity. If you look in Europe, you have a choice of whether you want to fly or you want to get on a train to go to the destination of your choice. We talk a lot about how do we make sure that we put more aircrafts in the skies, interconnecting different countries, making sure that, all of us can be able to visit each other. There's no reason why I shouldn't have taken a train to Botswana if there was a train from Johannesburg to Botswana to Gaborone. That's high speed. That I can get in an hour, I should be here. So I'm challenging us to say, when we talk about connectivity and intra-Africa travel, yes, we've got the airline component, but we need to also focus on rail component. Other countries, you go to China, the development of rail transportation, is quite advanced. But for us, we don't even talk about it. We are reliant on air connectivity. And therefore, the cost of air connectivity and the challenges that we have, and many declarations that were done and never implemented, dominate the discussions that we have, and yet we leave other components out, which moves the majority of our people within different countries. So what I'm saying is, land travel outweighs air travel at the moment in Africa. That's how we move around. And that's what the majority of people do to move across different countries. So I thought I should mention that. Another thing that I want to mention, maybe a little bit controversial, and majority of us as African countries will do this, and maybe it's something that we need to fundamentally change. I think it's important that when I arrive at any African country, I must feel the culture, the vibrancy of that country, and everything that has to do with that country as soon as I arrive at the airport. One thing that we don't do well, and this is where the small businesses needs to come in, and those that can bring in a different kind of vibe. I don't think we should, in our own countries, we don't need to go and experience our culture in a particular place. We don't need to go to, let's say, the cultural village to experience a South African culture. Because when we go to London, or when we go to Germany, or go to England, or when we go to America, you don't go to a place to experience American culture. You experience it when you arrive at the airport, throughout. So for ourselves, as Africans, one thing that we need to adopt is that our culture should not be confined to a place. It should be from when we arrive at the airport. It should be when we get to the hotels that we have. The food that we eat in hotels should represent the culture of that particular country. But at the moment, it's not so. We tend to build our cultures and put them in villages or in cultural centers and so forth and so on. But you will never go to England and they tell you that getting a transport, we're taking you to a cultural village. We do this in South Africa. We have cultural villages all over. It's like we've forgotten who we are. And we will need to be transported back in time to experience who we are. So I'm just saying it's a challenge to us. So as we talk about inter-Africa travel, let's make sure that the experience of the particular destination is felt when people arrive at the airport. It should not be a project that is done outside of who we are and what we need to be doing. Okay, let's get into SMMEs. So there are a lot of challenges that SMMEs face. One challenge that we spoke about is regulation. And when we start to talk about regulation, one thing that I've seen, having been working in the regulation space, is that we talk about regulation as if it's something that was transported to us and we have nothing to do with it. And therefore, it's very difficult to change. So I would like to challenge the public sector to say, the regulations that we have that are meant to ensure that small businesses thrive have to be conducive to the environment. If they are not conducive to the environment, we should not act as if the regulations that are there cannot be changed, because they are written by us, they need to be changed by us. So I think that is something that we talk more and more about, but we never action it. Year after year, we talk about how we're going to deregulate so that SMMEs can thrive. But that end up, not happening on a faster pace. And we find ourselves, really being in a space of, advocating for certain things to happen within the public sector space that should happen automatically, in my point of view. So when we start to talk about SMMEs and the regulation, the red tape, and things that SMME face, deregulation is key. If we don't deregulate the environment, we are stifling the very same industry that we want it to create jobs. So that's a challenge to the public sector. Work with the SMMEs, the formations, to make sure that the regulations are supportive of the SMMEs and the SMMEs can thrive. Another part of this is how do SMMEs work together? So in most cases, and I've said, as I started, that SMMEs are the majority in the industry. However, there's a disjointment in terms of how we make sure that SMMEs grow and thrive. One of the things that I think is important is that there has to be linkages between SMMEs themselves. So in South Africa, we have a lot of SMMEs that got together and form a network. One offers, tour operation, one has a vehicle on the other side, one is a tour guide, one has a B&B, and then they get together and form a coalition where they work together to ensure that they can be able to go and hunt for business and be able to service that business that they've received. So it's very important, in my opinion, that the SMMEs themselves form a network whereby you work together, you support each other, and you are able to go and hunt for larger type of business or conference or whatever it may be that you should be able to do together. So working together, key. The second part of this is that how do we ensure that the DMOs, the destination management organizations or agencies, and SMME work together? Because the majority of SMMEs, are in a space of trying to attract, be it the inbound market. Some of them are doing the outbound market, but the inbound market remains attractive. What I have seen is that for a very long time, SMMEs work with the larger destination management companies, the DMCs, only on the ground. So in other words, they never get a chance to go to the source markets to go and present their case and get the business directly from the customers within those source markets. And many times, even if there's a program that's put together, by be it a government or tourism marketing organization, by the time you get to London, to WTM, to ITB, the deals are already concluded. So you can sit there, you can showcase what you're doing, you can interact, but if you're not going to those destinations throughout the year and negotiate throughout the year, by the time you get to WTM, you are showcasing, but the deals are signed already. So there's a gap there. And the challenge here is that the financing of SMMEs and the programs that are designed to support SMMEs, they should keep in mind that going to ITB or WTM or to IMEX or other shows that happen should be to showcase and to meet with the people that you've already signed deals with. Sometimes there's no point. I've met many people who have gone to many shows, but they still struggle to get that business because it's already been signed, sealed by those that travel frequently into that particular market. So there is a bit of a gap there that needs to be addressed. So there has to be a linkage between SMMEs, the DMOs, and of course, the core, government, departments that are responsible for SMMEs. Another part, and I'm going to finish up now. I don't have a lot of time. We talk about the resilience of SMMEs. And most of the time, we do lots of case studies about resilience. I've read documents from OECD, NEPAD, various government departments. You go to Asia Development Bank, they talk about how do we make sure that SMMEs are resilient. So I'm going to put it in simple terms. In order for SMMEs to be resilient, or any company to be resilient, there has to be money attached to it. It's as simple as that. Resilient in theory means nothing if there's no finance. Because when we start to talk about sustainability of a business, majority of the time, we're talking about financial sustainability of the business. And SMMEs, in their nature, usually they don't have a balance sheet, that many financing institutions would want to look at. So therefore, it becomes, it's like a topic that we discuss all the time, something that we mention all the time. And we talk about resilient as if we can sort of teach SMMEs to be resilient. But majority of the time, as I've said, it's all about financing. So the challenge to all of us as we move into the intra-Africa trade is that, number one, we should not leave small businesses behind. We should keep in mind that the industry is small businesses. We should also keep in mind that for new experiences to be developed or designed within the tourism space, majority of the time, those new experiences will be designed by small businesses. So it's important that we keep in mind that in everything that we do, small businesses, youth, and women in tourism usually are the ones that are going to bring new experiences that we can sell to the world. As an African continent, we are usually known for our wildlife. A lot of people travel here. The selling point, wildlife. We need to win ourselves, of the wildlife and present other experiences, that people can travel to. Our nightlife, our food, our culture, many other things that we do, as the people of Africa. It's never presented in that way. So we need to ensure that when we support small businesses, when we support SMMEs, we need to make sure that we do so and create new experiences on top of that. Because without new experiences, soon you will find that we'll be competing with other countries who will be selling wildlife of different forms, shapes, and whatnot. So I think it's important that we present ourselves fully and we're able to say this is the full offering that we have as an African continent. So that's very, very important. The challenge to small businesses is that there will be times when what we expect from government is not done. We've seen this time and time again, that we go there with expectations, we go and say we want this to be done, and it's never done. But entrepreneurship is about growing where a lot of people think you cannot grow. I always say, if you have a paving, you put the paving bricks and you pave a path to your house or to your garage or whatever, there are always weeds that grows in between. How does that happen? It's because they don't ask for permission. Those weeds just mushroom. They don't ask for your permission. They will come up, they will grow. Even if you go and try to remove them, they will come up next week and grow. You do the same thing, they will come up. I see that as part of us being African entrepreneurs, that we need to grow in a place where we may not be wanted. We need to grow in a place, that is a desert. We need to mushroom. We need to come up, new things, new ideas, new way of fixing tourism, new ways of bringing different types of experiences, that will attract the international markets, new ways of moving the continent forward, and new ways of ensuring that tourism in the African continent is sustainable. And I think that young people, entrepreneurs, SMMEs are a way to go. And if we grow together and we build these linkages, And if we make sure that we introduce, as I've said, new experiences, new way of doing things, redefine tourism, rethink tourism, and also let's make sure that in whatever we do, we don't leave who we are behind and we try to be who we are not. Let's sell the authentic self, and let's make sure that in everything that we do, we move in unison, we sell African experience, and we present it to the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for that